What is going on, everybody? I am back today because on April 19th, the film Abigail releases, and it is about a little girl who is a ballerina but also a vampire. And the movie looks absurd and fun, and I'm really excited to watch it, especially because I'm a huge fan of the directors who made the movie. I really enjoyed their Scream 6. I really thought they did an amazing job with it. And I was a huge fan of the movie Ready or Not, and I think they do a really great job incorporating comedy into horror. And so I feel like no matter what, the movie's going to be an entertaining experience. But because that is coming out so soon, it got me thinking about vampire movies. And I have watched a lot of vampire movies in my life, and it's not necessarily my favorite genre in horror, but some of my favorite vampire movies are the ones that take the concept of vampirism and do something unique and different with it. And so I thought it would be fun today to tell you guys some of my favorite vampire movies and just recommend some of them that maybe you haven't heard of before, maybe some of them you have, and you can check those out. And as always, I would love for you in the comments to leave me some of your favorite vampire movies. I'm always looking for new ones to add into my rotation or films I haven't checked out. And obviously, it'll be impossible for me to incorporate every movie I love, but today I'm going to just talk about some of my favorites. So first up is a film I've mentioned multiple times in multiple videos on my channel, but it's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This is a black and white Iranian vampire film that is so unique and different comparatively to a lot of vampire films that I've watched before. The vampire in this movie is essentially a vigilante almost. She's killing horrible people and she's moving about through town and she's alone, and you can tell that she's just trying to find solace in something, and she really enjoys music, and she ends up meeting this character who lives at home with his abusive father who abuses drugs constantly, and the two of them meet and start spending time together and form this unlikely relationship. The movie is incredibly beautiful. It's very well shot. It has a great score, and it's just very unique comparatively to a lot of films in the vampire genre. There are moments in this movie that remind me of David Lynch, just some really surreal, abstract sequences, but they fit in the movie very well. And I feel like the tone is really unique. Some moments almost feel kind of like a Western in the way that it's shot. It's just a truly great viewing experience. And if you're looking for something in the vampire genre that is much different than anything you've ever seen before, this is definitely a movie you need to watch. Up next is the Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement film, What We Do in the Shadows. I'm a huge fan of both this movie and the FX television series, and this film is hysterical. This follows a group of vampires living in New York City in modern day when the film was shot, and it's a documentary crew following them around and getting insight into their day-to-day lives, and it is absolutely hilarious. Taika Waititi has a very unique sense of humor, so does Jermaine Clement, and I think the two of them working together is just a match made in heaven. There are so many moments in this film that make me laugh so hard I cry every time I watch it. It's just perfectly paced humor. But on top of that, the element of vampirism and the horror elements are taken very seriously. And I think whenever you're making a horror comedy, if you're gonna incorporate horror elements into your comedy, you need to pay attention and make them feel realistic despite the humor. And there's a lot of attention to detail, not only in the vampires, but in the werewolves that are incorporated and all of the different supernatural elements that are added into this film to make it an incredibly enjoyable experience. And it's just got so much replay value, and the TV show is phenomenal as well. They were able to expand this universe and build on those characters. But if you've never seen either before, watching this movie is a great jumping point into enjoying the series as well. Up next is the Jim Jarmusch film Only Lovers Left Alive. And this is a really interesting vampire movie because it's not a vampire movie where the entire crux is people hunting down vampires or, constant fight sequences. It's a very quiet movie about a vampire couple who has been alive for hundreds and hundreds of years, that they're starting to get bored with life, and they Tom Hiddleston's character is a musician, and he thinks about his life over the years, and he just doesn't really know what he wants to do. And we get the very methodical way that they have to keep living, where they get their blood from a blood bank, and they essentially do these underground deals so they don't have to kill people and put themselves at risk. And his partner is played by Tilda Swinton, and their relationship is so unique. And there are comedic moments in this, but there's also incredibly thoughtful dialogue. And I think more than anything, this movie is a look at just how we perceive life in general, and how, what if you had the opportunity to live forever, and would you start to get tired of it? And just the whole idea of the fear of death and what comes next. And I just love all of the existential questions that this movie asks. And the performances are exceptional. The cinematography is fantastic. The musical choices are great, as per Jim Jarmusch as usual. And you don't typically see a vampire movie that is this quiet and reserved, but it's a really fantastic experience. And it's one that I've been really itching to revisit lately, because I watched it the first time a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it, and I really want to check it out again sometime in the near future. Up next is the film Thirst from director Park Chan-wook. I am a huge Park Chan-wook fan, and this is also another very unconventional vampire movie about a priest who undergoes this experimental treatment that is going around about a virus that is circulating, and it turns him into a vampire. And this entire film is more of a question of morality, where you have this character who has devoted his life to the priesthood, and he gains eternal life and these vampiric powers, and has to question every decision that he makes in relation to his moral code of conduct. And it is fascinating. The entire film is just really unique when it comes to tone. I feel like Park Chan-wook, his entire filmography is like that, where whatever movie you jump into, you never really know what to expect. And this movie is downright hilarious in moments. There are scenes that just made me laugh so hard I almost cried, but there's also some really intense dramatic moments as well. And it's like what I said about What We Do in the Shadows. Despite some of the comedic tone, it takes the vampirism element seriously, and it's brutal and unrelenting when the vampiric element comes through. And I think that's so important to creating an effective vampire film. And it's just really entertaining. I think Park Chan-wook is one of the best directors working currently, and this is one of my favorite films in his entire filmography. Up next is one of my favorite modern vampire films, and that is My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, from director Jonathan Quartas. I actually interviewed him a while back, and he is just such a wonderful human being, an incredibly talented director. And this was a movie that the first time I watched it, when it came up on Shudder, just really took me by surprise, because I hadn't seen anything like it in quite some time. This is a film that treats vampirism like a sickness. It's less of like you get these really strong powers, and you're indestructible. It's like you need blood to survive, and if you don't, it's going to eat away at you like a cancer. And this movie is so much more about familial dynamic and structure, and about what you would go to take care of one of your family members. It's a brother and sister who, their younger brother is infected with this vampirism, and they have to go out and kill people and get him blood so that he can continue to survive. And the oldest brother doesn't want to do it anymore. He doesn't want his brother to die, but he also doesn't want his life to continue to be put at risk, and he also wants to be able to continue living. He wants to be able to make a life for himself. They live in this really run-down, decrepit home, and he has the same routine over and over again. And it creates a very complex family situation. And the vampirism is so symbolic for just any sort of toxicity in a family, or any sort of struggle that you could have to go through, whether a family member gets infected with a sickness, if a family member is addicted to drugs, whatever it may be that could be difficult to have to take care of. And I think the way John handles all the elements of it is just brilliant. The film is shot beautifully. The cinematography is outstanding. The musical choices are great. And the third act really took me by surprise. I did not expect it to go in the direction that it did, but it's wonderful. I've seen this movie 6 or 7 times, and every time I watch it, I grow to appreciate it more and more. It's one of the best modern vampire films I've seen. And then last up, I have to mention my favorite vampire movie of all time, and that is George Romero's Martin. This just recently became available on Blu-ray for the first time ever, and I'm so glad because for the longest time, the only way you could watch this movie in its original format was on YouTube. I don't know, someone got a hold of it and you were able to watch it in the way it was originally intended to be viewed. But this is my favorite film in George Romero's catalog. I know so many people love Night of the Living Dead. There are a ton of films in his catalog they praise, but Martin is unlike anything I've ever seen. Martin is a story about a young kid who is raised in a very conservative family environment, and they tell him that he is a vampire, but he is not. He does not have fangs. He does not have vampiric abilities, but he believes that he has to drink blood in order to survive. And so what he does is he hunts down these women and he sedates them with a needle, and he uses a razor blade to cut them and drink their blood. And he is sent to go live with his conservative uncle, who tells him while he is living there that he is going to cure him of his vampirism or kill him, and that if he finds out that he has drank blood of anyone in the community, he will kill him immediately. And the entire film is following around Martin's character, and he does horrible things. He does horrible things to people, irredeemable things. But the film starts to ask the question, is the reason he's doing these things because he has been programmed his entire life to believe he is this way? And it questions so many things, down to religion as a whole, because his uncle is incredibly religious and devout and believes that vampires are a curse from God and that they're these awful things. But Martin is a kid. I mean, he's really young, and he's been told that he's this way his whole life, and he doesn't know how to think any other way. And he meets this woman in the film that starts to put into question, could he stop doing this? Could he get to a point where he believes he does not need to do this anymore? And I love films that can tackle really heavy subject matter, especially when it's cloudy morally, and you have to really think hard about it. And this film gets into very dark territory, but it's remarkably shot. The score is one of my favorites of any film. It's really uncomfortable and strange music that accompanies the tone and the mood of the film really well. And it's just one of the most unique vampire movies you're ever going to watch. I think it's one of Romero's best in his entire catalog, and I try to recommend it to anyone who loves vampire movies. So what are some of your favorite vampire movies? Let me know in the comments. This is just a list of a few of my favorites. Obviously, I have a lot more vampire films I really love, and let me know if you'd like me to make a part 2 of this video. As always, if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.